thank you also for having this presentation here. As I mentioned, it's a joint effort from a lot of working group 2 members in our action. And as you say, it's as Edwin already introduced, it's what we call an initial assessment of the economic burden of helminth infections to the ruminant livestock industry in Europe. The word initial is probably important because I will not have much time to go in detail on that today because of time constraints, but of course there's a lot of improvement areas possible to our estimate, but still it's the best we can get today. So when I was about starting to do research in this area, I remember having this paper from Ronald Kaminski, who was working at Novartis at the time, Drug Resistance in Nematodes, a paper tiger or a real problem? In other words, is it a problem of scientists who sometimes like to create a problem to motivate their research, or is it a real problem in the field? Already at that time, the author concluded that it was becoming a real problem. Since then, almost 20 years have passed, and actually the level of resistance has only increased both quantitatively, geographically, and also in ruminant species. And this has been nicely captured by the new paper which is out since, I believe, yesterday or 2 days, by Hannah Rose Finier as another Combar output publication, where basically all the available studies in the literature have been summarized and clearly showing that today, for instance, the level of ML resistance in cattle is as high in cattle as in sheep. So, okay, we have a problem. That's not nice. But what can we do about it? What are the solutions? One part of the solution is, of course, communication, raising awareness, communicating on sustainable practices as we know them today. But the next presentation, we are doing that. We are trying to do that. And the next presentation will cover that in more detail. Another thing we can do is policy intervention, and there's more and more agreement, I think, in the scientific community at least, that there could be need for a higher level of policy intervention. On one side, by making more, let's say, stricter rules to help implement best practice management. For instance, making it some kind of obligatory to make a diagnosis before taking treatment decisions, just as an example. But another component of policy intervention is also develop research in innovation programs so that we can come up with new solutions, be it in the form of vaccines, new resistance breaking anthelmintics, nutraceuticals, or any other new knowledge that can help in breaking anthelmintic resistance. However, if we call for policy intervention, what you need is economics to motivate why you call for it. And we were of course, in the unique opportunity now with our cost action that we have a wide network of experts across all of Europe, and we can use that network to collect country level information, because a lot of data is available in public repositories, such as animal population size, etc. But a whole lot of information is not available in public repositories, or it could be available in literature, but for instance, not on a country level estimate. So we need experts to interpret the data and say what it means in concrete terms. The methods we used were quite straightforward. So it was basically a simple spreadsheet model, and that models the cost of disease as a function of disease frequency, infection intensity, the effects of disease on mortality and productivity, but also the human efforts to respond to the disease. We started from the Paracalc framework, which was previously developed for a farm level as a farm level tool and only in dairy cattle, and we extended that model to include other parasites such as bovine lungworm, but especially to include other species such as beef cattle, dairy sheep, meat sheep, and dairy goats. And also, rather than a farm level model, now we estimated the effects on the country level, so which is of course very different. Other considerations on the methodology, what we also did is we took into account access to pasture. This is more and more, especially in dairy cattle. They have quite restricted access to pasture in many countries. Some data are available on that, and we included that in our estimates. If animals are not having access to pasture, they of course cannot have infection with helminths, in most of the cases at least, and so they can also not suffer production losses. Another important consideration was, for the first time, we tried to assess the effects of the economic impact of anthelmintic resistance. If we want to do that, we have to know what is the effect of the use of a non-fully wormer versus a fully effective wormer. Now, more and more studies are available. There are still not many, but at least I believe there are now about 4 or 5 studies on this topic. And more or less all these studies point today in the same direction, that when you compare production impact on the use of a fully effective wormer versus a partially effective wormer, there are impacts at the level of around 15%. And so that is the number we used to estimate differences in production losses and treatment costs. Very important, what I would like to stress also, we modeled the effects of anthelmintic resistance. We disaggregated that from the overall cost of infection, because anthelmintic resistance is not the primary problem. The primary problem is the cost of the disease and the burden of the infection. And anthelmintic resistance is a secondary problem, and it's very important to see this together and not only anthelmintic resistance. So these are very succinct results at the EU level. So the total annual loss was estimated at 1.8 billion. 81% was due to production losses, 19% was due to treatment costs. Of course, there were large differences between countries, between helminth species, and also between production sectors. For instance, for helminth species, the highest costs were attributed to nematodes, closely followed by liver fluke, and then further of bovine lungworm. These are the costs of ML resistance. So we estimated that the annual costs today would be around 38 million per year, with the highest costs occurring in dairy cattle, then beef cattle, and then the small ruminants. Now, this was actually a surprising results to many parasitologists. Why? Because traditionally, yes, anthelmintic resistance is considered mainly a problem, and is also more visible in sheep. So this was thought probably to have higher, but when you express it economically, because the economic output value of the cattle sector is much bigger than that of the small ruminant sector. Certainly when you look at it at a European level, also the impact of resistance is much bigger in these sectors. Now, what are the next steps? Now we have these figures. First of all, of course, I would like, and we will see, we will see if there's opportunity to include this kind of approaches in a wider exercise where we can compare the costs with other diseases. And there is currently also going on the Global Burden of Animal Diseases initiative by Professor Jonathan Rushton, who is also I think involvement of the OIE in that. And it would be nice if we can include helminths also with in this larger framework. But already today, I think with our numbers, even if they are imperfect and there's many gaps, please read the paper to if the gap we can. I think they can start to inform policies. Which are the production sectors? Which are the helminth species? Which are the regions where the largest impact can be made, or where we could target our efforts. And talking about efforts and investments, what we did also in these studies is we collected all the known public research investment on the topic of helminth control over a period of 10 years. So the result was that when you express it on an annual basis, 2.7 million euro of public money is invested every year in the topic of research on helminth control. It's quite a lot of money. It's 3 million euro every year. However, when you express it as a ratio compared to the annual burden of the diseases, this represents only 0.15%. Now, the EU, for instance, states that if the EU wants to stay competitive in a global economy, we need to invest 3% of our annual turnover in research and innovation. I'm thinking maybe we should come up with the same figure for animal disease control. If we know that the disease is costing us every year so much, how much should we invest every year also in innovation, in research, to keep pace with the disease? Because we know, as we have also seen with Corona, that diseases evolve and we need continual investment to keep pace with evolving diseases. And then as a final slide, some comparisons. This is, of course, this may be a dangerous exercise to compare, because there can be many caveats why you shouldn't compare, but still I did it. So the above line, helminths, these are results from our study. The costs that resulted in our study of helminths in the Netherlands, Germany, France, and the UK. And below, I listed some figures from the literature on other diseases in the same countries where they are available. Now, what this exercise suggests is that, yes, endemic diseases such as helminth infections or mastitis often cost as many or are even higher than the more episodic diseases such as foot and mouth disease or in a while. So actually you have to spread the costs often over different years, or also zoonotic diseases. So clearly this suggests there is still room for continual investment in the control of these endemic diseases, and not only in the episodic diseases. And as there will be a lot of benefits to the control of these diseases. With that, I would like to thank first all contributors, which are listed here. I would like to invite you to also, for further details, read the paper. And I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.